Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me today. As you can see, we have quite a lot of parked threads in this area. There's going to be a lot of color changing again today. As it has been for most of this pattern. There was some larger blocks on the edges on the columns and some in the very middle for the sky, but most of it has been a lot of confetti for a lot of detail. Almost went to the wrong big square again. Have to be careful not to do that. Oh dear. There we go. Hadn't pulled the needle far enough down on the thread, so that happened. Okay. Oh, that other thread did not want to let go. Got a little, extra little fluffy bit stuck there. Just remove that. Right. Yeah, so I have to be careful in this area when I'm parking threads. Pardon me, I count from the grid lines and based on other parked threads as a cross check, because if I just go by the parked threads, then if I park one wrong, I'm gonna park a whole bunch wrong based on that one I parked wrong. So yeah, it is a good idea to double check that it's also in the correct area away from the grid lines. Then you catch your mistake a little faster. In theory, anyway. And that way you generally don't have to count higher than 5 since you can count from the other grid line. You know, if it's 7 away, just count, 3 away from the opposite grid line. Again, why I like to use sew on my own grids rather than using pre-gridded fabric. That way I can still see the grids even in areas covered in dark threads. You can generally see the pre-printed ones through the very light colors, but through the dark colors you can't really. So that's sort of the trade-off, because it is a bit more work to do the stitching the grid on by yourself. And having to remember whether that you were using line 1 or 10 as the grid line, as it's usually a row of the actual fabric that has the grid printed on it, not sort of between the stitches the way a thread goes. Yeah, almost no two stitches of the same color next to each other here. Getting some good brain exercise this morning. Okay, so this color, I kind of like to do sort of all 4 at once, so that means I will have to go over to the left and do the ones that are to the left of them, so that I don't have to close stuff in, which means I may actually end up going even further left and working my way back to the right. Yeah, a lot of this light yellow. We will end up with several threads, I think. There we go. Okay, so because of the length of this piece, I may just, oh, okay, but then that will close in that one there. Let me take a look. So just doing a little planning. Okay, so I'm thinking this one, yeah, it's gonna go to the right. I'll start a new one for there. So keep on sliding to the left here. Yeah, sometimes in order to get sort of a clear path without closing stuff in, I end up going quite far, like even 2 or 3 squares down that diagonal. Because, like I said, that's why I don't work in rows. I just let the colors tell me what I should do. Threads sometimes travel up or sideways to the right instead of downwards towards the left. Okay, so now I can do all of these at once, and I think that will probably use up this thread. Yeah. Because that way these are all hugging that edge. I'm not doing anything out of order or closing anything in. Yeah, that worked out perfectly. Get pretty good at guesstimating how many stitches you can get out of a piece of thread after you've been doing this for a while. So yeah, now I can do these 2 number 7 stitches at the same time. Then I can do this one. I don't even know what I would name that. Square pizza? Kind of looks like, yeah. Kind of looks like it. I remember they made those for a while. Back when I was a kid in Pizza Hut. I don't know if you can still get those or not anymore. Okay, so then that way I can do all 4 of these in a row like I wanted to. And because I don't cross as I go, my thread will end up back where I started, and then I can park it over to the right for the next instance of this color. All right, and another thread I can park in the next diagonal and out of my way. If I can find the right spot with my needle, my goodness. There we go. There, so as you can see, we went left, worked our way back up to the right, and then sort of once I've reached the edge of this, the right-hand edge of this diagonal, I'll be going back to the left and working my way outwards again. Okay. See if I have any little bits left. Perfect. I do. Let's try that again. Yeah, wasn't quite properly aligned. And now I can't seem to pick up a needle. My gosh. Okay. Sometimes with these really short pieces, I actually thread them through the other way. So I put the loop through the eye. Just for some reason that sometimes works a little better, especially if the ends are quite fuzzy. Looks like my next diagonal will have a bit more bigger blocks of color. Okay, I think this one is, yeah, I think I'll end this one off. Yeah, this dark purple color has been used quite a lot. Not really much of a purpley pattern, but it fits. Gotta trust that the designer knows what they're doing here, using purple on the tree trunk, but colors are surrounding it makes a difference too. that, yeah. Okay, so again, back to the left a bit to clear my path for the stuff that is to the right. Now, not gonna get away with not trimming that one this time. It is just too fuzzy. There we go. Oh, oops. Oh, yeah, that's what I get, hey? I tried to thread the needle back up, but that pulled another thread through, so yeah. You really should unthread your needle when you have to undo a stitch, but sometimes I still break that rule. This one is a little, just smoothing it out there. Even though I'm being pretty nitpicky, I doubt anyone else would notice except for me. There we go. Alrighty. Oh my gosh. My skin is a bit dry. I forgot to put some lotion on, so having a harder time holding on to stuff. Oh boy. So I ordered myself another stand. This one is one of those sit-on stands so that I could have one that's a bit more portable. And so I ordered, it came from a seller in the UK. And it got to Canada in like 2 days. I thought, wow, awesome. And then now I've been waiting a week. It says it cleared customs, but I don't know. Some people haven't scanned the barcodes or updated anything, so it's been marked as cleared customs for a week now. So I'm hoping to see it soon, but yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be one of those, they never update it until it's actually shown up right at your door. Yeah, it's one of those, gives you a tracking number, but all that tells you is somebody made a shipping label and nothing else. Okay, this thread is good for 2 stitches, so I'm going to carry it down to the right, and the other parked one, or to the left, I should say, and then the other one that is parked there is also going to go further to the left. Okay. And another that can be finished and put away. Just going to check the other. Okay, so that made me decide whether I wanted to bother parking this or not. But the other thread that is already parked in that next big square is long enough to do the other stitches there, so no point carrying this one that far. If it had been only long enough to do the stitch that it was parked in, then I would have carried this over to the right so I don't have to attach a new thread. And another one done. Right, waited so that I could do these together without closing anything in. Excellent. All right. Okay, so I actually did have one in that bunch still threaded. If none of them were threaded, I think I would have just at this point tucked those all away. It's so close to that line. I could have just left it for the next diagonal, so. Oh, but you look at that. Haha. I thought something was threaded, but it actually wasn't. There was just a needle from one that got unthreaded. That's funny. Okay. That's all good. Have to do that stitch one way or another, right? All right. This one is threaded. I'll do it. If it's not, I will tuck it away. It is threaded. Okay, so now we got a kind of a straight row back to the left again. Yeah, I don't work in rows, but sometimes with this method, it does end up with a straight, you know, row of like 10 stitches across, as if I was working in rows. Okay, I can see I already decided for more than one thread in this part. Yeah, because of the way they're spread out. Can usually figure out what past me intended when I get there. Yeah, it's funny actually. I had a joke about that saying, when you have ADHD and you order stuff, you often forget about it. So then when it gets delivered to your house, you don't remember what it is you ordered. So it's like getting surprise gifts from your past self. Yeah, sometimes I'm obsessively checking the tracking information as soon as they give it to me, but then sometimes I just forget about it, and then when the parcel arrives, I can't remember what I ordered. Okay, so begin a new thread here, and looks like we'll get to do a bunch in order. Nice. Oh dear. So because I have a bunch in a row here, instead of a loop start, I'm actually going to do a thread, but not an away thread. I've shown this in another video about how I join from the front. When you have at least 3 in a row, find that's the minimum. But you just sort of make sure that you catch it on the back, because the in-between wraps around them. If you've done this while turning the work, then you know what I'm talking about. But then this way, because you have the tail here, you did not have to turn your work. Then just pull it back to the back once you're done. Yeah, I never ever turn my work anymore, unless it's impossibly tangled on the back and I need to untangle something. But otherwise, yeah, I do all my beginning and ending threads from the front. And there is a video that I made about that, a short little, like 3-minute video of how I do that with different techniques. But yeah, saves you time, and if you keep things threaded on needles like this, you really don't want to be flipping it back and forth. It's a really good way to tangle them up. So that's another reason to do it. So yeah, what does my back look like? It's a surprise to me too when I finally take it off the frame and spread it out. Although I find the back is not too terribly messy with this method. And in the end, once it's, you know, mounted and hung up, nobody's going to see the back. So I'm not entering any contests with it, so I don't mind. As long as it isn't too lumpy, which it isn't. So, because using loop starts and pin finishes does help to cut down on some of that bulk as well. Yeah, I have seen some extremely talented people who can get the back of their work looking almost as nice as the front. There was a guy in one of the groups I'm in who did that. He had a picture of the front and back of his work side by side. It just looked like a mirror image of each other. You almost couldn't tell which one was the back if you didn't know which way it was supposed to be facing. It was incredible. Yeah, that guy's got way more talent and patience than I do. Also, though, he was stitching it slightly different method. He was stitching it continental tent stitch, so I don't know if that makes a difference in helping to keep it neat or not, because I have never done tent stitch, which is the you don't cross the stitches, they're just left as the half stitch, like the first leg. So yeah, a lot of people like it that way, because it goes a bit faster, right, without having to cross the stitches. But I'm a completist. I'm used to crossing them. So tent stitch is not something I've attempted. Maybe one day, but I doubt it. I don't really see this changing much. I'm quite happy with the way this is. If I tried to do that, then I would end up having to sort of do things a little differently, because of course, if you're not crossing, you're not going to end up back where you started, and that's going to change things a fair bit. Just like when I did a project where I enlarged it, so I did 4 stitches for every 1 stitch on the pattern. That changed where my needle ended up a lot of the time, because there were sort of twice as many rows as what was in the pattern. So I did find it changed the paths that I took through the stitching. Took a bit of adjustment. And so I know if I tried tent stitch, I would have to do the same thing, and I'm just not really sure I want to change. The one where I enlarged it was a really small pattern. It was less than 1,000 stitches, so that wasn't a big deal. But yeah, if I'm going to be investing in something that's, you know, 200,000 or more stitches, I want to make sure I'm comfortable with the technique I'm using. That is for sure. Yeah, because a lot of people say if you just do half cross stitch and not a tent stitch, because there's a difference because of how it looks on the back and the way the thread carries on the back, your fabric can warp. Some people have had problems with that. So it's not as simple as just doing a half a cross stitch. A lot of the times you are actually having to change your technique. So I think it will be one of those, I will admire other people's work that is done in tent stitch, but I'm going to stick with my way, I think. And of course, if you want to get the same coverage, you have to use twice as many threads as what you would use in full cross. So like for this one, I'm doing, 2 strands. If you were doing it in tent, you'd have to use 4 strands, and then you'd be more likely to need to use some kind of a laying tool to keep it from getting twisted up. So there is that as well. So it would save you time in having to do not as many stitches, but then if I'm having to spend more time making them look neat, might work out to be fairly close to the same. Honestly, the process of stitching is probably more of my favorite than the completed item. I mean, of course, I like the completed item too, but the making it is my favorite part. Okay. I think that piece is a bit short that I pulled out. I have quite a few of leftover bits of this color as it's been used quite a lot, but quite scattered throughout the pattern, so there's been quite a lot of stopping and starting. I've got a lot of leftover bits I want to use up. But if I use something that's too short, then I'm just going to end up with even more leftover bits. I'll just make the problem bigger. So there's also that to consider. Looks like I already have 4 of this color parked, but again, scattered all over the place. So we're going to end up with 5 now. I don't mind. Oh, I see what I did. Yeah, when I was parking this, I actually accidentally pierced this thread here. and caught it on this thread. So when I was trying to pull this free, I couldn't. It was snagged, but we were able to undo it. Yeah, that is something got to be careful with when I'm parking threads where there are already other threads, kind of part them so that I can get through and prevent that from happening. But of course, sometimes it will still happen. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take a look. This one parked down here. Yeah, that is a short one, so it's not going to be worth carrying it back up. If it was, then it could have affected what I decided to do with this new thread that I'm joining. So I'm not going to leave that one threaded. It's too short. The needle will not stay on. I will rethread when I get to it. My goodness. Couldn't seem to double tap there successfully. I'm going to end this thread off now. It's too short. Oh, now we have 4. And then there were 4. Yeah, I don't know. That was one of my favorite books. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Yeah. was actually required reading when I was in high school. And of course, I often would put it off until the night before the test, and then have to cram it all into one night. So, yeah. Oh shoot, I have to read this book, and then it's like, wow, this was actually really good. Yeah, I've read other Agatha Christie since then, but that was my favorite. They made a mini-series of it. And it was good, but the book was better, I have to say. But then I read the book before I saw the adaptation, so that's usually the way, right? Yeah. If you see the adaptation first, then you might not think so. But if you've read the book, you've got, you know, an idea of what the characters should look like and all that sort of stuff. And it's pretty hard for anyone to match that up perfectly, right? Yeah. And I mean, screen and print are different mediums. Sometimes what works in one just doesn't translate to the other. So, try that again. Yeah, there was a meme I saw that said, if you're watching an adaptation of a book, how will you know if you're watching it with somebody who's read the book? And it says, oh, they'll tell you. Don't worry, they'll tell you. Because yeah, if the director deviates at all from the book, they will let you know that's not how it was in the book. Sometimes it works. I know the 1951 adaptation of A Christmas Carol, the Alistair Sim as Scrooge, they actually did change a couple of things from the original book, but I think it worked. And of course, there was the masterful performance of Alistair Sim, so yeah. I've watched other adaptations, but that is definitely my favorite. Although Patrick Stewart did a pretty good job, but I mean, I think he'd have a hard time acting badly in anything. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. Been watching the new Picard Star Trek series, and quite enjoying that. Yeah, I'm not one of those people who doesn't like new Star Trek. I like it all. It is weird to hear them swearing, though. Of course, the old TV stuff they couldn't, right? Because it was on prime time. So there were a couple of times in The Next Generation where the Picard swore in French, so that one got past the censors because they didn't recognize that it was curse words. But now that it's streaming and on demand and stuff, then they can get away with swearing now. But it doesn't offend me. It's just a bit of a shock because I'm so used to Star Trek not being allowed to use those curse words. So, and then it's like, oh wait, right, yeah, that's right. It's not on primetime anymore. They can get away with it now. Okay, so I think I'm gonna wrap up this session pretty soon. And I want to thank you once again for joining me. I'm so honored that you like stitching with me. And I hope that I will see you here the next time. So, thanks so much, everybody. Bye.